Hello and welcome everyone to our Flint, Michigan virtual press conference on clean vehicles, featuring Michigan elected officials along with clean vehicle advocates who have come together today to support significant investment in electric vehicles and EV manufacturing. I want to thank again our hosts, Black Millennials for Flint and Moms Clean Air Force, for sponsoring today's event. For our agenda, we'll have 2 to 3 minutes of formal remarks from each of our speakers who will be visible and audible via their video. At the end of our formal remarks, we'll have a brief Q&A session where members of the media can use the raise your hand function to indicate if you have a question. I now want to introduce Elizabeth Hauptman, Michigan Field Consultant for Moms Clean Air Force. Elizabeth, the microphone is yours.
Hello, and again, welcome to our Clean Vehicles event and press conference where Michigan elected officials and climate advocates have come together today to speak out in support of bold federal investments, expanding the electrical vehicle market, building EV infrastructure, and supporting advanced manufacturing as part of the current budget being debated in Congress. I'm Elizabeth Hauptman, the Michigan Field Organizer with Moms Clean Air Force. We are a community of over 1 million moms and dads united in our fight for clean air and climate to protect our children's health and future. I'm excited to co-host today's event with Black Millennials for Flint. We must take several different actions to boost Michigan's economy and target different sources of carbon pollution. Today, we are here to talk specifically about a collection of actions related to the transportation sector, which is now the largest source of carbon pollution. These actions can move Michigan forward in modernizing our transportation sector, creating jobs, and cut carbon pollution that is fueling climate change. This presents a win for our economy, our health, and safety. We are asking Senators Stabenow and Peters and all of our Michigan congressional delegation to support a budget proposal that makes significant, bold, and ambitious investments in electric vehicles and electric vehicle infrastructure. Those investments, along with other climate priorities, will cut pollution, address environmental injustice, and boost our economy and create jobs. Time is running out, and we need to act. While these are federal level actions, our federal, state, and local governments must work together to ensure efforts that are complementary and effective. I, along with other speakers today, will elaborate on these items and how we can create a clean transportation sector, fight climate change here in Flint and across the country. Now I have the honor to introduce our first speaker, Congressman Dan Kildee.
Well, thank you so much for that, Elizabeth. And thanks to Moms Clean Air Force and Black Millennials for Flint for pulling us together. And to my fellow elected officials, thanks for all your great work on this. Look, as a member of the House leadership, as Chief Deputy Whip, and as a member of both the Ways and Means Committee and the Budget Committee, I'm right in the middle of this, working to getting both this infrastructure package and the Build Back Better budget signed into law as soon as possible, because together these bills will go a long way to meet the needs of the people that I represent. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to rebuild America's crumbling infrastructure, to cut taxes and create jobs for middle-class people, and to make sure that the biggest corporations and the wealthiest individuals in this country finally pay their fair share. And so I'm committed to making sure we do that, and also to take this opportunity to address climate change and build an economy that works for us all by putting more American-made electric vehicles on the road, addressing climate change, making our communities cleaner, and obviously putting people back to work. Look, I'm a proud Flint kid, the birthplace of General Motors. And so I see this as a chance for us to learn from some of the past mistakes and ensure that the United States, not China, leads this transition to electric vehicles. And that's why I'm leading the effort in the US House to secure bold investments in electric vehicles in the Build Back Better budget, which is a win-win for workers, for the economy, and for the climate, ultimately helping to save the planet. So the way we're going at this, no matter where you charge an electric car, it's obviously cleaner than using traditional internal combustion engines. And that not only means savings in your pocket, but a cleaner community, cleaner air. And electric vehicles will create thousands of good paying jobs right here in Michigan. I'm working directly with President Biden, with Senator Stabenow, my counterpart in the Senate, and of course with Speaker Pelosi, who's been helping to lead on this, to create a tax credit that will make electric vehicles more affordable and will support union jobs. We're doing that by making the tax credit fully refundable, which means it's available at the point of sale to ensure that more Americans have access to this, more middle income, especially Americans, can afford an electric vehicle. We're ensuring that we support American jobs, especially union jobs, so we don't support foreign vehicles over American-made ones. And finally, we're going to help meet the president's goal. President Biden set an ambitious goal that 40 to 50% of all new vehicles being sold are electric vehicles by the end of this decade. Additionally, we're making pretty substantial investments in charging infrastructure so that you can charge your vehicle at home or at your office or in a public parking lot like the ones we just showcased in downtown Flint just a week or so ago. Flint is known, my community, our community, is known for putting the world on wheels. And right now what I'm doing is working in Congress to ensure that we put the world on electric wheels to combat climate change and to support workers. So thank you all for inviting me to be a part of this. And now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague and my friend of longstanding, Representative John Cherry Jr. John.
Thank you, Congressman Kildee, and thank you for all that you've done to fight for Michigan, Genesee County, mid-Michigan in Congress, particularly with this budget that ensures that we're going to receive the investment that we need to build back our communities and build the vehicles of the future. As a hunter and as an outdoorsman, I see every year climate change is happening, it's real, and we are going to take action. And we know that part of that is electric vehicles, and electric vehicles are the vehicles of the future. It is important that we invest now to ensure the United States and Michigan in particular is positioned to be the leader in producing the vehicles of the future. And so we need to leverage our investment to ensure that our transportation sector is full of good paying union jobs and that our county is full of good paying union jobs producing those vehicles. Flint and Genesee County has consistently been a leader in building our country and building the middle class. And with the investment in the Build Back Better budget, we can ensure that we are building the future and that the future is built using well-paid union workers. So I greatly appreciate the strong leadership that we have had from Senator Stabenow and Congressman Kildee and my colleague, Commissioner Clemens, in fighting for Michigan investment and Michigan jobs and Genesee County jobs. I know that our senator, just like our congressman, is going to fight to ensure that the Build Back Better budget positions Michigan as a leader in the development of the vehicles of the future. And I appreciate all the work they've done to this point too. And with that, I want to turn it over to my good friend, Commissioner Dominic Clemens.
Thank you, Representative, and thank you for the work you're doing in Lansing. I think we see with work like this that's going on, it's not something that we can accomplish on one level. It's taking partnerships from federal government, state, and here at the local level to get real work done. I just want to start by thanking the Biden administration for their bold vision in pushing forward these efforts, and specifically to Congressman Kildee for his efforts on pushing this through the House and supporting our Build Back Better budget. Congressman Kildee's been a champion for Flint and Genesee County and has been a fighter for environmental justice. As a young person, I know firsthand that the biggest issue that's affecting my generation and our future is the climate crisis. Climate change has been making extreme weather events more and more frequent and a regular occurrence and more severe. We've seen this in communities across the nation and right here in Michigan. We've seen crippling storms damage our infrastructure in the Metro Detroit area and all the way up to Saginaw. It's only a matter of time before our Flint and the Genesee County area are hit by one of these debilitating storms as well. So we desperately need congressional action that will meet this climate crisis and that's going to protect our communities that are already living in extreme and dangerous weather areas. And we know further that the biggest contributor to carbon pollution in our environment is the transportation sector. And that's why we're here today, is about talking about how we can cut this pollution, specifically in the transportation sector. And I believe that's an investment in electric vehicles. It's not only going to curb the climate crisis, but as you've already heard, it's going to help bring hundreds of good paying union jobs to our community and to our state. The city of Flint, we've already said it, has helped put America and the world on wheels through innovation and through progress in our auto industry for the last several decades. Now, through bold and ambitious plans from the Biden administration, the next generation of Flint is ready to bring new innovation to the automotive industry, is ready to create new manufacturing and engineering jobs with electric vehicles right here in Flint. You know, one example of the innovation that's already happening here in Genesee County on clean energy and clean vehicles is our Flint Mass Transportation Authority. They've been working tirelessly on their Go Green initiative that's been bringing clean energy and hybrid vehicles to Genesee County for public transportation, as well as alternative fuel facilities. The data shows that just based on a 200,000 miles of operation, each one of these new vehicles will put 82,000 fewer pounds of carbon dioxide into our atmosphere. That is a huge start, but there's still a long ways to go. And the investment that's been outlined in the Build Back Better budget, and the investment in clean vehicles and clean vehicle infrastructure is going to boost the clean energy economy and is going to provide a sustainable, well-paying jobs for Michiganders, specifically right here in Genesee County. So I'm going to continue to encourage Congress and the US Senate to act and to support this Build Back Better budget and to help grow Michigan's electric vehicle infrastructure future. And now I'd like to turn it over to Latricia Adams, who is the president of Black Millennials for Flint.
Good morning, and thank you so much for the opportunity this is a moment of celebration of innovation. When we think about specifically in the city of Flint, the quintessential, the heart of vehicle city, I would be remiss not to exude my excitement about the promise of bringing progress into the city of Flint. We know all too well with the Flint water crisis, some of the irreversible damage that has been done, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. So when we think about bringing this innovative model with environmental vehicles, we talk about reimagining the city of Flint. I'm not sure if all who are watching have really studied the dynamic of the city, but Flint has fluctuated as the vehicle or automotive industry has transitioned quite a bit for the last 2 to 3 decades. So with the promise of electric vehicles, we are not only talking about an increase in workforce development and accessibility to better paying jobs with clean, green jobs, we also talk about stimulating the economy. And Flint, Michigan, like many cities, historically industrial cities, historically Black and brown cities, have huge bouts with poverty. And so when we think about electrical vehicles, we're not just talking about improving the technology, we're also talking about restoring the economic vitality of folks in Flint, Michigan. Flint is resilient. And so we want to make sure that when we talk about the resiliency of Flint, that we're not talking about overcoming a crisis, but we talk about the strength of the Flint community that literally schooled the entire world on the automotive industry. And this is such a phenomenal opportunity specifically for Flint. I also like to touch on another key component when we think about this plan. It's imperative that we engage with our youth and young adults. When we talk about the jobs that will come from electrical vehicles, we have to make sure that our young people are actually equipped and have the capacity to take on those jobs. What we don't want to see in the city of Flint is, for lack of better terms, for transplants to come and take all of these phenomenal, progressive, innovative jobs. So it's imperative for there to be intersectional organizing from our higher ed, from our K through 12 institutions, from our local government, to ensure that the people of Flint have first dibs as it relates to the expansion to electric vehicles. And the last thing that I will touch on is we have to make sure, as we begin to see this transition, this progress within the city of Flint, that we don't leave Flintstones behind. So as we bring in these new innovative electric vehicles, we have to make sure that we are realistic in making sure that we also include anti-gentrification measures in place where we don't push out the folks who have been resilient in the city of Flint, but ensure that this is accessible to all who may have been in Flint or Flintstones for generation to generation. So again, on behalf of Black Millennials for Flint, we are energized. We are ready to partner in this work to ensure that there is equity, both from a racial perspective, both from a socioeconomic perspective, and then also from a gender perspective. We want to make sure that our sisters also have a stake in engagement as we expand to this modernization of clean energy vehicles. All right, so I will pass it to our next speaker for this morning, and that would be Ms. Hockman.
Thank you so much for your comments, and thank you to all the wonderful speakers today. I'd like to tell you a little bit why I care about this so much. My son has asthma, and his disease is made worse by air pollution. In the summertime, we need to watch our weather app to see if it's safe for our son to play outdoors. On hot days when the air quality is terrible, I know he's going to have a tough day. As a mother who's seen the fear in her son's face as his chest tightens and he gasps to breathe, we must do more to protect him and the children who suffer from this chronic illness. Parents like me far too often have to rush home after soccer games or swimming on hot summer days to use our children's nebulizers. Michigan has some of the worst rates of asthma in the country, according to the American Lung Association. Childhood asthma rates are significantly higher for children of color. Latino children are twice as likely to die from asthma, and Black children are 10 times more likely to die from asthma than white non-Hispanic kids. These statistics make it abundantly clear that strong clean car standards and a shift to zero emission vehicles is an environmental and social justice issue. Our children deserve justice in every breath. Because of my son and over 166,000 children in Michigan who suffer from asthma, we need tougher air quality standards to protect our children from the nation's largest source of carbon pollution, tailpipe pollution. Pollution harms all of us, but it disproportionately impacts children. Children are smaller, they live closer to the ground than the rest of us, standing just about tailpipe high, where concentrations of pollution from cars, trucks, and buses is coming directly at them. Children still developing heart and lungs are being exposed to dirty exhaust from vehicles that spew carcinogenic poisons in the air. Tailpipe pollution causes poor air quality that can exacerbate asthma, causing more asthma attacks and resulting in millions of missed school days, games, and outdoor family events for kids across the country. On behalf of Moms Clean Air Force and our nearly 30,000 members in Michigan and today's speakers, I'm asking Congress to implement the strongest vehicle pollution standards and make bold investments in clean transportation, infrastructure, and jobs. We need these bold investments to transition to a clean energy and address the urgent climate crisis now. The climate crisis is not something that we'll see impact someday in the distant future. We are seeing climate impacts right now with extreme weather events, excessive rainfall, floods, storms, and heat waves. Michiganders and our kids deserve the strongest investments to mitigate the climate crisis and quickly transition to a clean energy and electric vehicles. I appreciate everyone joining here today, and thank you for listening to our remarks. I'm going to turn this back over to Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you to all of our speakers. That's the end of our formal remarks portion of our event. We now have a few minutes for question and answer. For members of the media, if you have a question related to our event topic, you can use the raise your hand function to indicate your question. I'll work through the questions, requests one at a time, and I can unmute your line so you can ask the speaker your question. Before getting to your question, please just make sure to state your name, media outlet, and if there's a specific panelist that you're directing your question to. Okay, so again, just please use the raise your hand function. Okay. Audrey LaForest, if you want to unmute your line.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
There you go, Audrey, we can hear you.
Awesome. So this is Audrey LaForest with Automotive News. This question is for Representative Kildee. So it sounds like the House is going to move forward with Senator Stabenow's proposal in the Senate Finance Committee that would tie additional consumer EV tax credits to vehicles made in the US and those assembled in unionized factories. From my perspective covering the auto industry, we've heard from Honda and Toyota and some other non-union groups that have criticized the proposal, calling it unfair and discriminatory and that it will limit consumer choice. I'm wondering, how do you respond to that criticism, especially when other auto industry groups have called for the broadest consumer incentives possible since EV sales are still pretty low?
Yeah, so I understand the question, but I think, a budget and tax policy is a statement of our values. And I think we know that workers that have labor standards that provide good wages, decent benefits, worker safety protections are more sustainable. The entire US economy and the creation of the middle class was built because of the fact that we were able to organize labor unions, and we want to tilt our policies in favor of those workers. Now, the one thing that is absolutely clear is that even for those non-union companies, their workforce benefits from the fact that the competition provides these decent wages and benefits and worker protections. So they are not outside the realm of organized labor, and we think that that's an important point. The other point, though, and we are working largely on the basis of the work that we've done together with Senator Stabenow to ensure that these protections are in place. But we are maintaining essentially, and a lot of these numbers we're still working through, but we are maintaining the base credit. So other companies that want to produce vehicles will still be able to sell those vehicles utilizing the base credit. We just believe that in a time when we've seen decreased rates of unionization, falling wages, decreased emphasis on worker protection, decreased emphasis on good benefits, that we ought to try to tilt the scale back in favor of an economy that is sustainable, that supports families. And we think this is one way to do that.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, Audrey, for your question. We have time for additional questions. So members of the media, please use the raise your hand function if you have a question. Apparently our panelists covered every detail, which is great. Wonderful. Once again, I want to thank Moms Clean Air Force and Black Millennials for Flint for hosting our event today. Reminder that we are live streaming this event on Moms Clean Air Force Facebook page, and a recording of the event will be available immediately after. We'll also be sending out a press release that will have information. If you have any questions or requests for follow-up interviews with any of our speakers, you can connect with Kurt Zellers, whose contact information is on the press advisory. I want to thank our speakers again for their support for clean electric vehicles and bold investment as we go forward. Thank you again, and have a terrific day.